Hello and welcome to a book review. So today we will be discussing Night Shift by Stephen King. Ta-da! So I am rereading my Stephen King collection, and I thought I would start with the early ones, and I picked up his very first short story collection, published in 1978, Night Shift. And this was published in February 1978, which is only a few months after he published The Shining. So the only books out at the minute when this was released was Carrie, Salem's Lot, and The Shining. Bestsellers all. And then this one came out, the first short story collection, and it's not my favourite short story collection. That is reserved for something else. But it is the first one, and it does have a special place in my heart for that. Now, this particular edition is from Cemetery Dance. Did I pay over the odds for it? Yes. Yes, I did. Because it is limited to 3,000. It's limited to 3,000 copies. Now, it doesn't actually say what number it is, but it is wonderfully illustrated. Yeah, so the cover artwork and design is from Mark Stutzman. The interior artwork is by Chris Odgers. Now, the interior artwork being things like this. And there's a picture for every short story in here. So things like this one. And this one. This is a collection of 20 short stories, and I'm not gonna do a full review of every single short story in here, because those short stories either have videos of their own already out on my Stephen King playlist. I'll link that up there as well. I am going to be doing a video of every single little story in this, so it doesn't seem to be the point to talk about them all now. But what I am going to do is go through what stories are in here and just say a little bit about them on the way. Most of the stories have spawned films, movies. Most of the movies haven't stood the test of time with the special effects. But we'll get there. I don't really watch many of the Stephen King films, especially the films made of his short stories, because there doesn't seem to be that much in them. I've seen most of the films, but you kind of give and you take. The books are always better when it comes to Stephen King. So, like with any book review, we are going to start with the blurb. This new book of stories from the author of Carrie, The Shining, and Salem's Lot. It's annoying that they're not in order, but that's just me. I'm being picky. Is a chilling collection of strange imaginings, ghoulish twists, and diabolical terror. Stephen King, a modern master of the macabre, has brought together 19 of his most unsettling short pieces. Bizarre tales of dark doings and unthinkable acts from the twilight regions where horror and madness take on eerie, unearthly forms. Where noises in the walls and shadows by the bed are always signs of something dreadful on the prowl. The settings are familiar and unsuspected. A high school, a factory, a truck stop, a laundry, a field of Nebraska corn. But in Stephen King's world, any place can serve as the devil's ground. If the time of night is propitious, I think I said that wrong, and the forces of darkness are strong, and the victims are caught just slightly off their guard. Love it. So, we're going to go down the list of short stories that are included in this book. And in this edition, there's 22, because it's got bonus short stories at the back. And we'll go through them too. So, first one up, I'll put a little number up there, is Jerusalem's Lot, not to be confused with the novel Salem's Lot. Jerusalem's Lot is a little novella. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a short story because it's a little novella. And it's told in the forms of letters and diary entries of when Charles Boone and his manservant Bones retired to his family home. It's passed down through the generations, called Chapelwaite. Now, I think there was a TV series about this, and although it is a prequel to Salem's Lot because it's called Jerusalem's Lot, it doesn't really seem to have the same location as Salem's Lot, although it does have the same name, because Jerusalem's Lot is at the top of a cliff, and Salem's Lot is landlocked. But it is a very interesting read, and the tension that keeps building because you can hear scratching in the wall and just things just go off the rails. Something just, it's king. It goes off the rails. Next up is a Graveyard Shift, and this is a very weird one. So King did used to work in a laundry. I wouldn't say it's like the Blue Ribbon Laundry because I don't think that's an actual company name. But he used to work in one of these laundries, which is why you will find them interspersed throughout. And Graveyard Shift, it is one of these, I think it's a textile mill, not a laundry. And the guys work there, they work the graveyard shift, and they get the bright idea to clean out the cellar and then end up finding a sub-cellar that isn't on any of the ordnance maps. Full of junk, absolutely stinks. They have the great idea to clear it all out, but they find something has been nesting there. Now, Night Surf is a very short story, and I think it's kind of a prequel to what would later become The Stand. Night Surf, it's only maybe 6 pages, and The Stand is 600. But it has the same disease name, and it is just a snapshot of what is going on in the world. A group of college kids are stuck on the beach and they're assholes and they burn somebody alive. We're in horror. To rest it on my shoulder because it's quite big. I Am the Doorway is a definitely more of the science fiction than the horror. It's about a retired astronaut who has brought something back with him from a trip to Mars. The Mangler is one of my firm favourites because it is glorious. It is set in a laundry. The Mangler is a gigantic machine, bloodthirsty, and enough ingredients go in it for the spirit to possess it. And this is not a benevolent spirit. And then people try to get rid of it and fuck it up. The Boogeyman is awful in a good way. It's not my favourite story, but it is horror. It's horror at its best. Now, I don't know about America, but there's they have bedroom closets in all the rooms. We don't really have that over here in the UK. Our wardrobes are just a piece of movable furniture. And this guy has gone to a therapist's office and he is narrating that he's killed his 3 children. One by one. In a way, he kind of has, especially the last one. But this guy he's awful. He's an awful character. And he deserves everything he gets. But it is extremely horrific. Next up we have Grey Matter, which is absolutely disgusting. That is to do with a guy drinks a bad can of beer. It's got some kind of bacteria in it, and it starts affecting him and those around him in a very disgusting way. Battleground, I do kind of like Battleground. You're with an assassin for hire, and he's just got back, and there is a package waiting for him, and when he opens it, it is from a toy company, except then something inside starts moving. Trucks is it's a famous one. You're at this truck stop and all the trucks and cars and things have become self-aware and definitely self-driving. They are quite sick of being the second citizens, so to speak. And if the humans do not comply with their demands, well, if you've got a semi-truck and a human body, there's only going to be one winner. Now, that was turned into a film, as was The Mangler. I think there's been a Graveyard Shift film as well. And The Boogeyman only came out a few years ago. But Trucks has a film, but it's not called Trucks. It's called Maximum Overdrive. And although you might not have seen it, you might not have heard of it, you might have seen this picture up here. It is infamous or famous. A lot of people like it for its cult. It's got a cult following. Sometimes They Come Back is one of my favourites in the entire collection. You're with an English teacher. So Stephen King used to be an English teacher. One of the classes he teaches is like full of kids that don't want to be there. They need English for the sports grade. Now, something quite traumatising happened in this guy's youth, and his brother got murdered. And then his own students start turning up dead. And it all escalates from there. And it is gloriously wonderful. It's one of my favourites. Strawberry Spring has a serial killer loose on a college campus. It is all intertwined with Strawberry Spring, which brings in the fog. So I think it's just like in America. I don't think it's a thing over here. We don't really get like Indian summers. And it says Strawberry Spring is the spring version where you think all the winter storms have gone, and it just means that there's a blip and there's a bigger winter storm on its way to end out the season. But people are turning up dead, there's a serial killer on the loose, and it's creepy. It's very creepy. It's got very creepy vibes. The Ledge isn't particularly a horror, I would say, but this guy has been having an affair with a local crime lord's wife. The crime lord finds out and he has a wager for this guy. Honestly, what do you expect? If you go messing around with a crime lord's wife, he's not exactly going to wish you both a happy ending now, is he? The Lawnmower Man is disgusting. It's all to do with kind of like the great god Pan. This guy, he goes through the wanted ads, he hires someone to cut his lawn, bring his own lawnmower, which he does, but things do not go the way that the guy who hired him expected. Quitters Inc. is, I quite like it, although it's not a favourite, I do like that one. That is all the perils of quitting smoking. The things that people will do to maintain that cleansing. I Know What You Need is my favourite story in the entire collection. We are with Elizabeth on a college campus, and she meets a guy, and he's not her type, but he kind of worms his way into her affections, and everything sort of spirals from there. You can tell that something is building, and building it is, and does, and it is just it's not really horror, but it is, I would say, more thriller. But I love it. And one everybody knows is up next, Being the Children of the Corn. No cornfield has ever inspired such terror as the cornfields surrounding the small Nebraska town of Gatlin. Where there are no adults, the place is deserted, and the children rule and worship he who walks behind the rows. Enter at your own risk. The Last Rung on the Ladder is quite a short story, and it's quite tragic. And it is tragic. Children are playing, the ladder breaks, things happen, and it's all about how it's easy to fall out of touch with people. The Man Who Loved Flowers is, I think, the shortest story in this book, That is about a guy in New York. He's walking down the street and he is so in love. He's practically walking on air. Everybody around him comments on it. They all want to be him. They want to be the one who he loves. It's quite pleasant. It's quite lovely. But it is King. And it doesn't end that way. One for the Road is another short story tied to Salem's Lot, where Jerusalem's Lot was a prequel, kind of. One for the Road is a definite sequel short story. So I'm not going to go too much into it here, in case you haven't read Salem's Lot. But One for the Road is creepy, terrifying, and yeah. The world of Salem's Lot in a snapshot. The Woman in the Room is the last short story in the normal publication book, and that is another tragic, sad story. It's not horror, it's not thriller, it's tragic. And there's probably a lot of different reasons why that is tragic. A lot of the things in that story collate to what was happening in King's life at that point, or just a few years before. It definitely influenced the way that story goes. Now, the two bonus stories that are in here is one called The Glass Floor, which I didn't even know existed until this came out. And that is about a guy who goes to his deceased sister's house to confront her husband. And there's a room that he's just plastered over the entrance to it. And he won't even look at it, he won't go in there. And he gives him sort of a hammer and chisel and says, enter at your own risk. And he does. And it's weird. It's weird. It's very, very strange. Now, the next one that's included in this is one called Weeds, and I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. I think I gave it like a 1 star. Science fiction, I don't like. Now, I've seen the image of this on, and I'll put it up. I think it's like on something like from Tales from the Crypt or something like that. Very goofy, very graphic, and King is in it as the guy. A meteor comes down to Earth, smashes it in the field, and splits open, and this goo stuff comes out, and then suddenly there's weeds growing everywhere, sentient weeds growing everywhere that it comes in contact that is damp. So soil, fields, skin, every little bit, in detail. I didn't like it. Those are the stories that are included in Night Shift. I gave this a 4 star because no collection will ever be a 5, because unless I like every single story in it, it will never be a 5 star. So Night Shift is a wonderful 4 star read. You can really tell where some of the later novels came from the short stories that are in this, such as Night Surf for the Stand, Trucks, which is, although it's the first story that King writes about sentient vehicles, it's not the last. And there's Children of the Corn spawned like a trilogy. I have watched all 3, and my god, does it get stupid. But most of them, I quite like the little snapshot stories, like The Man Who Loved Flowers. There's sort of a tie-in. Sometimes they come back, and I Know What You Need are my 2 favourite short stories. So let me know what you think of this book down in the comment section below. Which stories do you love? Which stories do you hate? I want to know it all. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel for all the spooky goings on, and keep reading.
Tall and rivers wide, dark stars quest a noble stride. With each drop of ruby red, stories live, no tears are shed. Castles glimmer on the hill, echoes of a life fulfilled. With the dawn, new hope is born. toy. Sip the wine, embrace the night. Dark stars journey shining bright. Through the trials, through the pain, love and light shall still remain.